Hey, it's Amy Shaw here. It's the end of January, I think maybe the 28th, something like that. What I really want to talk about today, something that's kind of been on my mind. I got personally attacked day before yesterday, something like that, maybe yesterday, for using the term shaman. Shaman, who really cares actually? Truth be told, the spirits don't necessarily speak a human language, so it doesn't really matter how you say it. But I say it shaman, and it's how pretty much everybody that I know in the shamanic community says it shaman. So anyway, let's not get caught up on that. More important than that is how we use the term. Actually, I use the term shamanista in describing myself, and kind of got questioned and attacked for that. So I really want to talk about it because I think that this is a big issue, and it's something that every single person on the path has to contend with. And I've certainly struggled with it myself. And so I just want to offer my insights, share a little bit of that process for me, and I don't know if it'll help you or not. So pretty much every single one of my shaman teachers has emphatically stated that one should never call themselves a shaman. And really, when you ask them why, the answer is usually, oh, well, it invites trouble, or because it's up to the community to decide if that is in fact what you are. So if your community wants to call you that, then they can. But the general consensus is that for one to call oneself a shaman, the potential is there that the person falls into a state of grandiosity, of arrogance, of narcissism. And so there's that aspect of it. And so even if the person is not necessarily any of those things, the other side, the shadow side of using the term shaman to define oneself is that it attracts people's projections onto you that will see you that way, as arrogant or smug or narcissistic, or and then the result of that is you suffer a lot of curses, unintended, unconscious curses directed towards you. And so I think that there's some wisdom in the advice of just avoid all of that and just don't even call yourself shaman. So I get that, and I do agree with that to some extent. However, I also believe for myself, as I've explored this issue, that shaman is just a label. It's a label in the same way as a teacher, a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, any of these labels. And we wouldn't send somebody through medical school and then tell them once they're done with medical school, you can't call yourself a doctor, because if you call yourself a doctor, people will think that you're arrogant and grandiose and you have a god complex, and so just don't call yourself a doctor. Or we wouldn't say that to a teacher, we wouldn't say it to a nurse, we wouldn't say it to anybody, right? Really. We wouldn't say it to a pastor. We wouldn't tell a pastor, don't call yourself a pastor, because people might think that you're really arrogant, or you'll show people that you're arrogant. This, in a sense, to me, is a false humility. And so I have brothers and sisters who are shamanic practitioners, and that's what they prefer to call themselves, shamanic practitioners. And it's certainly their right to do that. I understand why they do it. But for me, in my own path, in grappling with this issue of what to call myself, how do I define myself, what label, and really all a label is a shortcut, right? It's an abbreviation to describe one facet. In my personal opinion, and I've stated this many times, I state it on my website, I state it in conversations with people when this issue comes up. In my perspective, shaman is actually too small of a title for me. I'm much bigger than that, and I'm much more than that. But my incarnated aspect, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, to me is shaman. So why would I not call myself that? And to have a false humility that says, well, I don't want to project arrogance, and I don't want to invite cursing, so I'm just going to make myself appear smaller to people so that they can't really see my power, is really what it is. And that doesn't resonate with me either. I don't agree with that either, and I don't encourage that either. Now, if people, like I said, I have brothers and sisters that call themselves shamanic practitioners, they're comfortable with that for themselves, that they've decided that they're too humble to step out and call themselves shamans. That's their path, and I respect that, and nothing's wrong with that. I just know for myself that doesn't resonate with me. And it's not because I don't practice shamanism. I'm not saying, well, I'm done practicing and now I'm the master. I'm not saying that at all. I still continue to, quote unquote, practice shamanism, but to just call myself a shamanic practitioner, it feels to me like a false humility. It's kind of like saying, well, I don't, maybe I feel big, but I'm going to act like I feel small. I'm going to get humble and present to the world that I'm not really this, I'm just this. Because I don't want to invite the projection, I don't want to invite the curses, or I don't want people to think that I think I'm this big. I want them to just think I think I'm this small, and that way we just keep everything on this certain level. I mean, that doesn't feel genuine to me. It just feels like a false humility, a sort of contrived, humility. And for me, I've just come to the point in my life where I truly, fully believe in living as authentically as possible. No bullshit. And I'm not saying that other people that call themselves shamanic practitioners are bullshitters, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I don't know, and I can't speak to any particular individual. I'm saying for myself and the path and my journey and the decision that I had to come to make, for me to call myself shamanic practitioner felt like bullshit. It didn't feel genuine and it didn't feel authentic. And it felt like if I would do that, I was trying to make myself appear smaller than what I really am. And I just didn't feel comfortable with that. So really, like I said in one of the very first videos that I made about shamanism, when I talked about how to find a shaman, I think that more than the title, what you're looking for is somebody that resonates with you, somebody that speaks the same kind of soul language that you speak, that you click with, you feel right about, and more than just using your head. I think that it really requires you to do that gut check, that internal intuitive sensing about the person. And I think that when you pay attention to your spidey senses, so to speak, you're going to get a lot more information, and that's going to tell you if this is the right person to work with you or not. And it doesn't matter what they call themselves, truly. What matters is what you're looking for and how that person responds to you, answers the questions that you have. I mean, that's where you're going to get your information. So I just want to encourage you, if you're not on a shamanic path, but you're just looking for a shaman or you're curious about shamanism, that to consider that too. Yeah, it's not so much the title and how someone chooses to represent themselves. It's so much more than that, actually. Now, there is a difference between a shamanic archetype and fully embodying shamanism. And I think that that's a really interesting thing. And I'm really grateful. The School of Soul Science, I just want to give a shout out to them. I just listened to a webinar by the founder of the school, and he's doing some amazing work. I'm really excited about the work that he's doing. It's very Jungian, and I resonate. I'm very Jungian, being a psychology major, being a soul collage facilitator. I'm very Jungian in my perspective. I believe that Carl Jung was a shaman, and that he brought that element of his experience into his psychological theories and the books that he wrote, the things that he talked about. So I'm really excited. The School of Soul Science. Look it up, check it out, see if it resonates with you. The work that he's doing is really about the shamanic archetype. And interestingly, the other day in the webinar that I checked out online, as he was talking live, he also reiterated that, we should be very, very careful to call ourselves shaman and use the title shaman. And I understand why, because he's making a distinction between the archetype of shaman and the full embodiment of. And I do believe that there is a difference. One of the things that Robert Moss has said many times is that, there's a saying that from a dreaming culture, shamanic dreaming indigenous culture, that everyone who dreams is a little bit shaman. So in that aspect, we all contain within us a potential to be shaman. So there's that piece in us that we all possess. We all have it within us. That to me speaks more to the archetype. In the same way that we have all the archetypes in us, the archetype of the hero, the archetype of the warrior, the archetype of the mother, the archetype of the martyr, all these different, the spectrum. We all contain that within us, and we all have periods of time and specific experiences where we're manifesting that archetype. In fact, I was talking to my therapist the other day about the archetype of Jonah, right, in the Bible as one of the prophets. And I was telling her, I was telling her how I was first introduced to the archetype of Jonah early on in my life, and the resistance I had around that, and how ultimately, that's been an archetype that's expressed itself through me many times. In fact, as I was sitting there on her couch talking to her, it was manifesting in the dynamic of what we were talking about. I think that we can have singular experiences of the archetypes, and then we can have a more residual, resonant experience where the archetype sort of imprints itself on our personality structure, and we continue to sort of work with it and manifest it. And then, over time, you can actually come to a place of even fully embodying that. So I think that it's interesting that he's separating out the archetype of shaman versus the fully embodied, self-actualized shaman. And so I think that is the case. If you have like one experience of taking ayahuasca, that does not make you a shaman. It puts you in touch with the shamanic archetype. And what you do from it at that point, or how it expresses and embodies from that point, is yet to be determined. It's possible. But I think to get to a place of saying, I am shaman, you should have had a pretty significant experience that's characteristic of the shamanic archetype, and worked through that experience. So, the initiations and the shamanic deaths and all these kind of things, you should be pretty far progressed down on that road to look back and say, okay, this experience is continuing. And this archetype is becoming more than just a singular thing, a singular point, but I'm actually embodying it in my entire way of being. I am the archetype. I'm becoming the archetype. So for me, I can say, yes, I'm at that point, and I'm perfectly comfortable to call myself shaman. But at the same time, I want to just say that it's just a label. It doesn't mean I'm saying that I'm more special than anybody else in any different way than a doctor calls himself a doctor and is saying, well, I'm more special than anybody else. It just means that I have a certain knowledge, a certain experience, that I've done a certain amount of work in my life, to reach this sort of point to be able to say, this is the label that I accept about myself. But it's certainly not self-limiting, because as I said, the term shaman itself is actually smaller than what I really am. So when people are projecting onto me that, oh my God, you're so arrogant, how can you call yourself a shaman? To me, that really is just projection. It really is, because I really want to say to them, well, I'm actually way more than that, to tell you the truth. And so are you, and it's okay. I can be what I am, and you can be what you are. Just because you're not a shaman doesn't make me better or you less than or any of that. We're all equal in a sense, and we're all here to serve a purpose. And because I'm confident in my purpose, I know who I am, I know where I've been. I know what I am here to do. I know who I am. That doesn't make me arrogant. It doesn't make me narcissistic. It doesn't make me smug. It doesn't make me prideful. It just makes me in my power and confident and just sure of where I've been and who I am. That's all. That's all. So, if it's something that you're struggling with, I just want to encourage you to consider the things that I've said, and whether you ultimately feel you're not comfortable stepping out fully and saying, I'm a shaman, and you just want to keep calling yourself a shamanic practitioner, or you don't even want to call yourself that. You know, we each are on our path. All I'm asking for is understanding, you know, for people to not project and just assume that, you know, I'm saying, oh, I'm better than you, and I'm some really special person because I'm a shaman. I don't really see it that way. I think that a lot of people are shamans and they're afraid to step forward because it's not really in our culture. It's not really celebrated. It's actually, you know, we're actually almost discouraged from coming forward and saying that's what we are. It invites attack. It reminds me of, I think I told this story before, or my friend Jamie when I lived in the desert, you know, who's a professional title holding boxer, and how every time that man went out, he didn't even have to tell people who he was. It just, you know, it lived in a very small, Joshua Tree, very small desert town, not very many people there, you know, so word gets around. So everybody knew who Jamie was. And, you know, also the Marine Corps base was there right around 29 Palms, right around the corner. So anytime he was out and about, everybody knew, oh, look, there's the pro boxer, you know. And so then all the guys, all the Marines, you know, oh, they wanted to fight him, right? Because, oh, you know, he was like the prized possession. I think that's kind of the dynamic that can happen a lot in the prison environment as well. You know, you really don't want to be the one that steps up and says, you know, I'm this, because as soon as you show your power to people, you know, they want to claim you as their prize, so to speak. And a lot of this is really unconscious. They don't even do it really consciously or know what compels them to do it. But that's really what it is. It's a power struggle, and it's this unconscious drive to strip people of their power and to sort of take their power, you know. And that's the thing, you know, stepping out and saying I'm a shaman. It's the same thing. You know, people want to fight, so to speak, in the spiritual realm as soon as you do that, because you're kind of showing your power. And so you do have to keep that in mind, you know, that's part of the deal. And I don't know, I'm okay with that. I feel like I've been training for that. I've been preparing for that. That's been a big part of my path is spiritual battle. So I'm okay. I'm prepared. I'm ready. And yeah. So once again, I just want to tell you guys, and I'm really excited about this School of Soul Science, and I encourage you to check it out. They offer a free actual workbook that you can get from their website and download. It's 62 pages. It's pretty intense. And you work through it, and it'll help you sort of score yourself and give you an idea of where you're at in working with the shamanic archetype. So if you're interested in shamanism and you feel like this is your path, but you're not really sure, or if you're just curious, it's kind of, it's really similar to the Myers-Briggs type indicator in that it sort of has the different aspects of the archetype, and then you go through and score yourself. You know, there's questions about, you know, specific characteristics within, and then you score yourself, and then, you know, you at the end, you build a constellation that kind of shows you where the strong points are, where you're at in the archetype. So it's interesting stuff. And like I said, if you're interested, check it out. All right. So have a great day. If you have questions, comments, concerns, just hit me up. Have a great day. And I love you guys so much.